Hello. We were just waiting for a few more people to come in, um, but I think we might start.
Sounds good.
Okay, so
Sounds good.
um, for viewers who don't know, my name is Abby Moore, and I welcome you to Harmonic Youth Orchestra's first summer festival. This is our second event, and it's my pleasure to welcome Kaitlyn Walker and Gina Cuffari. We're so happy to have you here. So Miss Walker is my program administrator for the Woodwind and Brass Studies at NYU. Not only mine, but you're mine. And an instructor in oboe. You helped me so much during my first year at NYU, so I'm really happy to have you here to share your knowledge, along with Professor Gina Cuffari, who was my chamber coach last semester, but is the interim woodwind program coordinator at NYU, and a very talented bassoonist and singer too. And together they're helping to lead the NYU Woodwind program. So we're super excited to have you here. I'll turn it over to you guys whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Abby. Thanks so much for having us. We're thrilled to be here. Um, Thanks for introducing us. Yeah, that's kind of a mouthful in terms of my my official position name at the moment. Um, yeah, so I'm just wondering, so do we have students here right now?
Looks like it. They're trickling in
They're
right
trickling in.
now.
Yeah,
There's three right now. So they're
Oh,
coming
we had a
in.
few. We had a
Yeah,
few
yeah, yeah.
that they couldn't make it, so they wanted us to record, and we will be sending
Perfect.
them. Yes.
fabulous. Great, wonderful.
It's awesome.
Good. So we're thrilled to be here. Um, I just want to say that I've been teaching at NYU for many years now. Um, it's a pleasure to be here and to talk to you. I haven't had too many opportunities to talk to high school students about this specific subject, and I think it's really important to get all of our thoughts out there, especially for Kaitlyn. She is kind of an expert at this. She goes all over the country and runs these types of programs and talks to students all of the time. So I'm thrilled that she's here to kind of be our resident expert at this stuff. But we're going to talk to you today about the college admissions process, the preparation process, just everything that we think you will need to know at some point um, during the process of applying for college that we think is important. And first, I may as well just kind of start off here. Um, I'm not sure if everybody who is listening is going to be applying for colleges in this coming year, but eventually you all will be. Um, the first thing, obviously, that we all have to think about is what we want to major in. It's one thing to know that you want to be a musician, but these days there are so many paths that you can take, right? Obviously, one of them is the performance track. Um, so finding a performance degree program that you're interested in is great, but there's also music education, there's music therapy, arts administration, music technology, music business. There are so many different avenues that you can take these days. So, I know, speaking from experience, when I was a junior in high school, thinking about applying for colleges, nobody really told me that there were all of these different paths out there. Obviously I love to play, and I'm so glad that that's what I'm doing now. I'm a performer and a teacher, and I love it. But for example, my sister, who started to follow the same path I did, she's a few years younger than me. She's a singer herself. She decided to go to school for voice, but after 2 years, she got very disillusioned with it and decided to go into music therapy instead. And she even had says to me, if somebody had told me early on that this was something that existed, I would have started on that path earlier. So anyway, it's good to just explore some of these areas. Even if you're positive that you want to be a performer, you can still perform and yet have a career in some of these other areas as well.
Yeah,
So that's the
absolutely.
first thing, right?
I
Yeah.
was just going to say, so it's so funny because so many students come, especially to NYU, but any larger university that has some sort of academic background, so anything essentially that's not a conservatory, so a state school, for example. And, they want to have other options. A lot of students don't feel like they want to be pigeonholed into just doing performance. And that's okay. You're still able to manage that conservatory like environment with conservatory style training, but also have other resources at your fingertips. And when you talk about that, Gina, what are you interested in? It's a big picture thing too. So yes, we're interested in music. Yes, we know we want to keep this in our life. This is our passion. We want this to be our career. But do we have other interests as well? Do we have an academic area of interest? Do we want to explore other opportunities in the music realm? Like you said, music therapy, for example, is a great example. But the other thing is it's overwhelming to like pick your career path at 18. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I would never think that I'd be an arts administrator and performer when I was going into college. My bachelor's degree is in music education, So one of the other things also to consider when you're just looking at degree programs is what's the most general degree you can get. Maybe you don't know right away that you want to be a music therapist. Maybe you do, and that's amazing. And that's kind of why I lean towards the performance degree. I don't know if you agree with me, Gina, but the performance degree is nice because sometimes you can have a little bit of everything and make it work for you. Students can minor in business classes, or students can take music tech classes, if you will. Again, and that's usually a feature of a larger institution to have those resources. And then that way you can kind of choose your own adventure and start to mold your career that way, especially if you're going to go and get a higher degree. And we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But you're right, having all these interested and just being aware of what's available at different universities is great.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's the major thing. If you're not quite sure yet what you want to do, that's fine. And Kaitlyn, as Kaitlyn said, nobody really knows at 18 what you're going to end up doing,
No
right?
idea.
I never thought I was going to end up teaching. I didn't know I loved to teach until I started doing it.
Right.
You'll figure it out as you go on through life. But as Kaitlyn said, to kind of get a general, I think a performance degree is good. But if you are interested in other areas, make sure that's part of the exploration process when you are researching schools. And this is a good segue into what we're going to discuss about researching schools. What makes a good school? It's different for everybody, right? Write down, if you haven't done this yet, start to make a list of all of the different things that you think you would want from a school, right? And a lot of things you can think about are, first of all, if you do know you want to be a performance major or a music ed major or whatnot, start researching programs. Which schools have the best programs, right? Which schools are rated really high? Doesn't mean you have to necessarily go to the top school, right? Listen, there are so many wonderful, wonderful options for music all over the country. But again, it's just good to start researching to know what's out there. For music performance, I think the most important thing that you should think about is your private lesson teacher, right? Research who teaches at all of these schools. That student-teacher relationship that you will have with your private teacher is probably one of the most important relationships you'll have during your 4 years in your undergrad and beyond. Unfortunately, my undergrad teacher just passed away, but I was very, very close with him all the way through my teaching career. Yes.
Yeah. And I work for mine. So
Yeah,
mine is Matt Sullivan. So you really don't know where those private lesson relationships are going to take you. But Gina is absolutely right in the sense that that teacher and that relationship is what carries you, because you're usually going to stay with that applied teacher for 4 years. And when you think about that, an hour a week for 4 years is a lot of time. And you're going to go through many ups and downs, preparing for recitals, getting through, really difficult times while you're studying and advancing in your applied instruments. So that's another big thing, is just considering the relationship that you're going to have with this person. It's long term. You're going to be with this person for the next probably 4 years. So it's something to always consider. Another big thing while you're researching schools, and this is always overlooked, location. So many students are either super excited to get out of their hometown and want to leave the state, or, excited to do the opposite of where they grew up. And though that is appealing at the age of 18, thinking about the bigger picture, what comes with the location, so a lot of times students are interested in coming to a big city, or students that grew up in the city are looking to go to a suburban location, like I'm trying to think, like a UNC or something like that. Nice, big, beautiful, traditional college campus. With those changes come not only lifestyle changes, right? You can't just go out and get ramen at 2 a.m. like you can in New York City, but, and anybody that lives in New York City knows about that. One of the biggest things is the opportunities outside of that. So what are you looking to establish in your new location, right? If you're in a city, are you looking to maybe get job opportunities in the city? What does that environment afford you in addition to just your schooling? So location is definitely something to consider, even though you might want to do the opposite of what you grew up doing. Think about the long-term effects of that. And it is, I will say, and I know Gina has witnessed this, I can only talk about our experiences at NYU because that's where we work, but I've had many, many students that have come to New York from not large towns, Oklahoma, Kansas, Idaho. And it's a culture shock. It truly is. Yes, we're all in the same country, but when you come to New York City, it's a different animal, and that's an adjustment. And some students love it and they do really well, but it takes time. So that's something you should definitely consider and just be prepared for, and vice versa. If you're from the Northeast and you go south, or you go all the way out west, it's a different lifestyle. So it's definitely something to consider. This is a big one, and I'm sure we'll have questions about this later. Cost and scholarship availability. Always something to consider when you're researching schools. A lot of schools are cryptic about how they advertise their scholarship information. So those types of things, you have to just start digging and asking. And the best thing you can ever do is reach out and say, hey, what opportunities do I have for financial aid here? And every school is different, and I wish there was a uniformed answer, but the most important thing I can tell any of you guys, especially in high school, fill out the FAFSA form. Sit down with mom and dad, your guardian, whoever, your dog, get it done. Get the FAFSA in. It's so important, because a lot of times these universities aren't able to help financially support students unless we have that documentation, even if it's merit-based. Let's say you come in and you play a killer audition and we're like, oh my goodness, like this person would be a great fit for our program. We see the potential. We want them here. If we don't have that paperwork, we can't even offer you a performance-based scholarship. So that is always something to consider. Make sure you fill out the FAFSA, whether you need it or not, it doesn't matter. Get the paperwork in, get it done. It's a pain, but I promise it will pay off twofold in the end. And then Gina, you should talk about this next bullet point, because this is a big one.
By the way, it's obvious that we're reading off of something here.
Yeah.
We're gonna, Abby, we'll send our outline to you afterwards.
You want to share it?
It'd be very helpful for people to have this. It's a good list of things to think about. Yeah. So another thing to consider when you're looking at schools, again, especially as a performance major, and there are pros and cons for both of these, is how large the program is, right? How big is the music school? You want, as an undergrad, I think it's very important to get as many playing opportunities as possible, right? That's why you're a performance major. You're there to get the experience to perform in large ensembles, small ensembles, all sorts of different ensembles. Now, that usually means that going to a smaller school will afford you those opportunities. It's not always the case. For a place like NYU, for example, we're a huge university. The music school itself, though, is small in comparison to a Juilliard or a Manhattan School or any other schools around here. And And for most students get a lot of performing opportunities. It varies, of course. Um, but that is something to think about, to consider. Again, going back to my experience, I kind of had the opposite um, happen to me. I went to the Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, which is actually a fairly large program. I was one of 16 bassoonists in the studio for pretty much all 4 years. So, even though I didn't get to play in the orchestra until I was a senior, um, and that, again, thinking back on it now, of course, I wish I had had more performing opportunities. Got to play in a wind ensemble. I mean, these were fantastic, ensembles. It didn't really matter if I was playing an orchestra or not. But being around all of those incredible bassoonists, a lot of them were DMA students, master students, our weekly studio class was everything. I learned so much just by being around all these students, listening to them play, observing master classes. So it's really good, as Kaitlyn said before, to dig in to not only the financial aspect of a school, but to really get to know the program. And sometimes it's hard just by looking on a website to really see exactly what the program is like. So it's really important in this exploration process to reach out to people, reach out to current students that are in the program. If you're not sure who to talk to, go to the admissions. There's always an admissions office in each of the schools. Reach out to the admissions office, say, I have a bunch of questions. I would love to talk to a current student, and ask these types of questions, right? There are so many other things that you, at least as a student looking at a school, I would want to know, not just about, how large it is, but I don't know, like, what is a typical day like? What are your classes? How busy are you as a freshman? Is the community a really close-knit community of students? Or is it very competitive? It's, of course, everybody's experience at a school is going to be different, but it's good to start asking these questions right away. If 2 out of 3 people that you talk to say, "Oh, it's very cutthroat here," you have to be ready for that. Maybe that's not the place for you. you know um, so that's the very important thing. Kaitlyn, maybe you can talk about reaching out to professors too.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about this in a second, but it kind of applies when you are creating this list and you're curating all these opportunities and you start to hone in what you're really interested in. You're going to consider location for sure. You're considering the faculty roster, who interests you, et cetera, et cetera. You're gonna need to reach out to faculty, and I think that sounds super overwhelming, right? To be in high school and write to Dr. Cuffari about a trial bassoon lesson, right? And it sounds scary and overwhelming, but in my many years of doing this now, almost 10 out of 10 times, these faculty are not only thrilled to hear from you, but are really excited to make this connection and give you a trial lesson. And just ask, do you offer trial lessons? If not, do you have a fee? Everybody's different. Every school has different policies. Every applied faculty member may treat it differently, but take as many lessons as you can get. Meet and talk to everybody, and you want to make sure that you're really curating all of these people into your pool, because guess what, sometimes you're gonna take a lesson and it's not going to be great. Maybe you don't love that teacher, and that's okay, but now it's better to know the summer before you apply than you paid tuition and you're sitting in a room with them and you have the next 4 years to go, right? So that is a major point of advice that I always encourage our perspectives to do, is reach out to our faculty. Almost always on faculty bios, their contact is listed, and reach out to them directly. you know, ask, explain, give a little bit of history, where you're at, what you're interested in doing, what your ideas are, and ask for a lesson. And like I said, almost always faculty are very, very, very happy to help you, and happy to hear from you, which is really, really great.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and say, as a faculty member, I am thrilled. I am. I
Yeah.
absolutely am always thrilled to hear from a prospective student. And because it's not a one-way street. For us too, we're thrilled to make that connection, to get to know you personally, um, to get to know how you work, how you play before that audition.
Mm-hmm.
Because, let's say, who knows? Let's say you come in and you don't give the best audition in the world. But if you've already worked with that faculty member already knows you, knows what your potential is, knows whether or not you'd be a great student and a great fit in the school. And most likely you will be, Um, so I just want to say that it's true. It's probably daunting and scary to reach out, but just please do. We're always going to be thrilled to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that scenario that you just painted, I mean, that's happened several times at NYU. We've had students that have attended summer programs, taken trial lessons, and maybe we were on the fence about a musical admission, but we reach out to a faculty member that the student connected with, and they advocated for them, and it changes the decision. And that's definitely something to consider as you audition. And by the way, I just wanted to throw this out there. This also, all this stuff applies to graduate studies, like twofold. So let's say you're in an undergraduate degree, all of this applies, but the private lesson instructor is like even more applicable, because just as intense as your undergraduate is, your private lesson, relationship at the graduate level, I mean, that's the person that's, if you choose to get a graduate degree, that's the person that's really, helping you create the foundation of your professional career. Because from there, that's where you create your contacts for gigs and freelancing and outside stuff. So yeah, I love this section. So we pick our schools. Let's say we have 5 of them. And if you ask, Abby probably has seen some of my spreadsheet. I have a lot of spreadsheets. It's one of my favorite things to do. You got to make a spreadsheet. You got to make a list of every school's information that you collected. That includes application deadlines. That includes audition dates, audition requirements, which I'll talk about that in a second. Logins for portals. I mean, I can't remember my password to my computer. So like applying to 5 schools and you got to create all these passwords, write them down. I'm serious. I know that sounds silly, but it's true, because it becomes a pain if you can't log in. All your financial aid and scholarship deadlines, have all of those dates written out. Every school is going to be different. Every school is going to have different requirements. And then this is my favorite one. You need to establish a point of contact at every school. So what does that mean? Well, let's say I'm going to pick on Abby because we know her. Abby is applying to NYU, and she has her repertoire picked out, but she has a question about, the cadenza of the Mozart. I don't know. Maybe she wants to know if she needs to prepare it or not. I have no idea. She emails me because on the NYU website, it says, for any questions about auditions, email Kaitlyn Walker. Okay. Abby emails me with this question. She now has created a point of contact. I know who Abby is. I know she's preparing Mozart. I know she's auditioning for fall 2022. And now if Abby has any other questions, she can come to me directly, right? Creating this point of contact, and Gina mentioned it before too. Maybe it's through the admissions office. Maybe it's somebody that oversees the entire undergraduate program. Every school is structured differently, but having an email that you can go to directly for any sort of questions whatsoever is not only going to make your life easier when it's crunch time and maybe, there's been a confusion about your audition slot, or there's, a question about paperwork you need to fill out. But also now someone on the other side knows you, and they know who you are, and they know your name, and they know what instrument you play. And that's going to create a huge difference, even though it seems not like a big deal. We know who you are before you even walk in the door. And that's something to consider, creating that personal relationship a light bulb's going to go off in the head of the person that's sitting on the panel saying, oh, okay, yeah, we talked to this person, we know what they're doing, we know what they're up to. So having that point of contact is super, super important.
Good.
Super important.
Absolutely. So yeah, I just want to reiterate that, and Abby, maybe we can even ask you this. I mean, when you applied for schools last year, did you have something like this? Did you have a spreadsheet? Did you have a way to keep track of all of your information? Or maybe
I
not.
did. And now that you're talking about, having that point of contact, I realized like that would have been really good. I did not do that. But yeah, I had 10 schools I applied to, and that's a lot. And of course, I didn't remember every login and because every school is a different one, and every school has a different audition date and different time. So, yeah.
Yeah, good. And I actually just want to take a step back here for a second too, because we're talking about, again, ways for schools and specific people in the schools, whether it's teachers or admissions office people, to remember you, right? It's so important, I think, especially if you decide after you've done all of your research and you just decide, okay, I'm going to apply to maybe 5 schools, but there are really 2 schools that I really, really, really am interested in. I really want to go to them. Do everything you can to get involved with that school before you even audition, right? So let's say, for example, at NYU, we offer a summer program for high school and undergraduate age students. The past few years it's been virtual. Usually we have it in person. Go to it. Go meet the teachers, meet the faculty, meet the people who run this program. All of the people that run the summer programs are also involved in the day-to-day business during the year, right? See if you like the environment. See if you like the teachers. Go to the special events. For us, we sometimes do a double read day, and the entire community, anybody is free to come. And get to know faculty, get to know the current students at the school, get to know our program. What else? There are all sorts of things. Attend concerts. If you're in an area, right? If you already live in New York City and you're trying to decide whether or not you want to go to Manus or Juilliard or whatnot, start going to concerts. Start talking to students. As Kaitlyn said, and I love this, test drive the car before you buy it. That's what you really should be doing, especially, let's say the scenario is this: you get into 3 schools and then you have to make that decision fairly quickly of where you actually do want to go. If you've already done kind of all of that research beforehand, you're going to know what you want to do. Or if you have a few months, let's say it's there are a bunch of spring concerts going on, maybe virtual concerts. Listen, these days, the virtual world is just as important and just as prevalent as the live world, right? So I think a lot of schools are going to still be presenting classes and concerts online. Do the research. I just can't stress that enough. This is just another way to make contact with people and a way for you to explore programs.
Totally. Attending summer workshops is a big one. I mean, I can tell you it's probably like 68, I don't know, it's an odd number, but like 68% of the incoming freshman class in the woodwind program at NYU attended our summer program the previous year.
Yeah.
One of Gina's students who we're very excited to have. So that's awesome. All right, so this next section, this is like my quirky passion that I have outside of the music world. Gina's laughing at me because she also is passionate about this. And I just titled it Other Things to Consider because these aren't necessarily music related, but these make a huge difference when applying anywhere. So we're talking about making this point of contact. You're emailing, random people. You're emailing faculty members, you're emailing administrators, you're emailing clerical workers, you're emailing everybody that's involved in academia. You are now auditioning. You write that letter, your audition has started. Because how you present yourself in emails, how you present yourself, maybe even on social media. Let's say, I know a lot of students have like TikToks and Instagrams that are performance based where they're posting all that kind of stuff. If you share that with your faculty members, you know, where people are looking, you know, especially we've had a few students that have friended us on the Steinhardt music Instagram, and, you know, I see what's going on. I like to know what everybody's up to, right? But you're now creating these relationships, and how you handle yourself professionally matters. So basic, and I know this sounds silly, basic administrative skills, keeping a calendar. If you make an appointment with somebody, showing up on time, writing emails. My biggest pet peeve at NYU is when I get students that are like, hey, can you help me register for this class? Question. No signature. No, hi, Kaitlyn. No, hi, Miss Walker. No, hey, how's it going? No punctuation, no capitalization. Drives me insane. Don't be that person. Don't be that person. Because
I just want to say, because it's unprofessional.
it is unprofessional.
Even at 18 years old, I mean, that, like Kaitlyn said, you are presenting yourself as an adult now, right? And you never know who's looking, you never know who's watching, you never know who's reading. You always need to present yourself in the best way possible.
Totally. And it's, you know, your official audition didn't start, but we keep that in mind in the back of our head. Ooh, do we have a question?
We do.
Ooh.
Okay.
Anonymous attendee. We are going to get there. That's coming. I love anonymous attendee. That's so fun. Okay. So yes, the other major thing, in terms of basic administrative skills, Abby, I'll send this to you as well. Always, always, always have your resume handy. Okay. I actually have my resume from when I like graduated my undergraduate degree. I like dug it out, that I can send to you guys as like a template, and you're free to, you know, kind of take a look at it and see what you think, or take ideas from it. But always have it and always update it. So as you continue to play concerts, as maybe you create a private studio, maybe you played with a new group recently, believe it or not, as you continue to get busy, even when you're in your young early career, you know, let's say you played with a regional group, you know, you subbed with a regional group, do the gig and put it in your resume, update it right away, because you never, ever, ever know when someone's going to ask. I ask kids for resumes off the cuff all the time. And that's definitely something to always have handy. And again, polished, clean, professional, and just available. So all of those, again, I call it basic administrative skills, but just being organized and being professional makes a difference in not only how you appear, but just how your relationship and your career starts. That's the foundation of who you are. You know what I mean? We'll help teach you the music stuff, but we do need all those good qualities, because that's what's going to really catapult your career in the future. We talked about this a little bit, but things to consider as well while you're shopping around. And also, once you pick your schools, outside job opportunities. Are you in a city? Can you waitress on the side, right? Can you work at a Xerox copy place? Can you do other things outside of campus? And the reason why I say that is inquire and definitely pursue on-campus opportunities or on-campus employment, but don't depend on them. And the reason why I say that is, especially, I see it now all the time, not all students are eligible for work study, and a lot of institutions aren't getting the finances to support work study students, so the jobs are dwindling. Now, I think it'll get better post-COVID for sure, but if you know you need a job, don't necessarily depend on getting a work study job, and they're hard to come by. Work study is competitive. Working at the library, I know that sounds lame, but that's like the best gig going. If you can get a work study job at the library, like you can sit and do your homework and get paid for it. Don't tell anybody I said that. That's the way to do it. But they are hard to come by. So, and like I said, you need to be eligible. The school has to have the financial resources to offer it to you. So, don't necessarily depend on that. That's a big one. Yeah. And think that's it. Those are just my general nitpicky things. It's a very personal thing, but it makes a difference
It's
for
good,
sure.
and these are things that I certainly never thought about, at this age. So I feel like these are just really good things to start thinking about. I know
Yeah.
probably some of you are thinking, I don't even have a resume. I have no idea how to put together a resume. That's okay, right? At this
Yeah.
stage in the game, you shouldn't. It's like, who would? But again, we're gonna send you guys a bunch of these documents so you can start looking at them, start just understanding what we're talking about a little bit. Um, let's dive into preparing for the audition, since we have that question. And this is a very, very good question to the anonymous attendee. So, just in general, Kaitlyn and I both agree on this. And again,
Hmm.
sitting on panels and sitting on many auditions over the years, I can say that this is absolutely true. We are not looking for a perfect audition. We're looking for potential. We're looking to see, the attendee asked specifically, what can we do in preparation to stand out from the crowd, right? To stand out from others. Choose music that showcases your strengths. So if that means, let's say that you don't feel very secure about your technique quite yet. That's okay. Show off your musical skills, right? Show off how you tone, right? And maybe choose repertoire that gives a little technique in there, but it's okay if it's not the hardest piece in the repertoire. We don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear a hard piece that is messy, right? You're going to school to learn how to play difficult repertoire, right? We're building. You're going to be building your skills over 4 years, 6 years, who knows how many years, for the rest of your life. So we're not expecting that you can play everything perfectly yet. You don't need to be going to school if you can go out and win an audition, right? Win the principal position in the New York Philharmonic.
Yeah,
Oboe.
none of us will have jobs, so we need you.
Right? So we're not expecting that. I think the best advice I can give is first of all to choose repertoire. Okay, going back a step here. You put together your spreadsheet, right? Hopefully you put down all of the audition requirements that each school wants from you. Look and see what overlaps, right? If you have a bunch of schools that say we just want you to prepare two contrasting works, okay, great. Choose two contrasting works and really get those pieces into your fingers, into your brain, into your body, and prepare those and play those at every audition. As we all know, the more experience we get performing, the better performers we become. And listen, auditioning is actually a different animal, right? For those of you that have done a little bit of it already, it can be, there can be more pressure, right? Let's just be honest. Um, so you want to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward, you're presenting yourself in the best way possible. Don't give yourself extra work, right?
No.
Just choose those two or three pieces that you really know very well, that you've performed many times, that you know you're going to knock out of the park when you get into that audition room.
One of the things to double down on that, Gina, I have a private studio as well, and when I help my oboist students navigate this process, almost always they're auditioning for regions, all state, whatever your local statewide festival, honors group is. Almost always, my students always play their all state piece for auditions. Why? Because we've been working on it for a year and they audition on that piece usually before the audition process happens for universities. So that's always kind of, if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed with repertoire, that's always kind of a great place to start. What is your region or all state requirement this year? Is it an etude? Is it a major work? Can I somehow use that in my lineup of repertoire? Because at least then you're guaranteed one shot at an audition with that repertoire before you even go into your university audition, right? Like that's like your dress rehearsal, that's your sound check. So that's always a great place to start. And it's sometimes you have to think smarter, not harder. I've had so many students that have applied to so many different places that if they're not organized and they're playing all these different pieces for all these different places, you know, it's ends up not being quality performances, you know, and unfortunately that makes a difference. So maybe you need to limit your school list as well, and that's okay. You know, kids don't need to apply. We had a student, gosh, do you remember this, Gina? We had a student that was applying to like 18 schools that auditioned for us this year, and it was like, I was so exhausted when the student was going through the list. I was like, oh my, it keeps going. It's like the Energizer Bunny. It keeps going and going and going and going. And I know with the Common App, it's easy to click, like, oh yeah, I'll go here, I'll go here, I'll go here. But what a lot of students aren't realizing is, okay, yeah, you did that on the Common App, but now you have to figure out all these audition requirements, and can you meet them, and can you make the dates, right? So it does become, don't get too click happy on the Common App, because you know, you do want to try and hone in. I would suggest no more than 10 schools. And I think 10 is a lot. Abby, you're a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. You did 10. That's a lot of schools. Good for you, though. We're happy you're with us. You're up in the right place. But yeah, you kind of have to be smart about the repertoire you're picking. And, you know, a lot of times if you're able to finagle your list, you can have 2 or 3 pieces for your entire audition season. That's like really top notch. That should probably be the goal, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree with that, Gina.
Yeah, I agree. And just to go back to the question before, how do you distinguish yourself, right, from the rest of the group? It's, you distinguish yourself by, again, we keep saying this, but by being prepared and by showing us what your potential is and can be, right? So if that means that, you know, maybe you take out a piece that you worked on 2 years ago, but got, you know, into a really, really good place. Maybe you recorded it for a summer festival 2 years ago. You know, bringing something back that you've worked on prior to this year is also a good thing to do. Because you have a good foundation on it. Now you can work on details, right? You can finesse it. That's what we want. We want, for me, when I listen to an audition, I am more impressed by musicality than I am technique. Because listen, you can play up and down the instrument as fast as you want to. Great, that's really great. But does it serve the music? Right? Are we actually being musical? That's our job, is to be musicians, right? Our instruments are our tool to be a musician. So for me, when I hear a student that really plays musically, again, maybe it's not technically that difficult, but that to me, I don't know, that just says a lot more to me about that person as a musician and as a player. Again, technique is something that you can work on in school, right? But of course, if you already feel like you have a great foundation, as I said before, show off what you're good at. We all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. Even as professionals, right? We're all gonna show off your strengths. That's how you set yourself apart.
Another way to stand out is, and this was actually our next bullet point, so this is a great segue. Be prepared to talk about your pieces and why you're applying. You know, almost always live auditions end up being informal interviews. So always be prepared to talk in an audition. You know, in some schools, it might be very business, come in, you play, you get out. At least for us, we like to talk to our students. We actually talk to you guys for a little bit before you even start playing, just to kind of, you know, get you relaxed and know that we're not scary monsters and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, in your head, make sure you have a list of, you know, the pieces you're playing, maybe a little bit about why you chose them, or, you know, just, I don't know, if there's a particular movement that you want to start with, and maybe a reason for that, because you feel comfortable, because you love it, because you played it in France with your high school band. I don't know, whatever it is, like, be prepared to have these conversations, because if you're real with us in that moment, we're going to be like, oh, wow, that was like really exciting that the student came in super prepared. They were prepared to talk about their piece, why they want to play it. And again, that kind of makes the whole experience, kind of puts a bow on it. you know, it really ties up the whole audition process.
And also be prepared to talk about why you're auditioning at the school. You know, why are you interested in this school? Why do you want to be here?
Mhm.
You know, I mean, that again, this two-way street, it's important for us to know that too. We want to know that you're excited to come to
Mhm.
this school, right? If we hear a great audition, but then talk to the auditionee and they don't seem to be very excited or don't know why they're there,
Mhm.
that to us raises some questions, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so again, choosing your schools is very important. Know why you want to be there, right? You gotta kind of have your position and be ready to kind of defend it. Also, on the flip side, if you have any questions about the studio, the program, whatever it is, if there's time in the audition, you may have a minute or two to ask questions to the faculty. And
Mhm.
that's really good. That's a good sign for on
For
our end
us,
too, to hear that, oh, this student really has been doing their research. They know what they're talking about. They're very interested in this program. You know, that
definitely.
shows us that you're definitely thinking about coming here. So
Especially the introduction I saw on your website, comma. We're like, ooh, that's good. You looked at our website. Um,
yeah.
I know this is like so silly. This is one of my nitpicky things. Gina knows that I get a little nitpicky with the administrative stuff. But don't tell the panel that you want to come to the school, especially in our case, because you love New York. So if you're applying in New York City, don't be like, I really want to come here because I really like New York City. That's great, but that's not like why you're not here to hang out in New York City for 4 years, right? And I know that sounds silly, but we get that answer a lot. And if you say, I love New York City because I want to be able to take a train and be at the Met in 2 minutes, that's a very different answer, right? So, you know, it's a lot of kids are thrown off. I'll be honest. One of the first questions we ask is, why NYU? Why do you want to be here? And I would say if a student's not prepared, their go-to is, oh, because I love New York. I love New York too, but you're not here to hang out in New York, right? So again, something silly like that, if you're prepared ahead of time, you can come up with a beautiful response as to, you know, whatever it may be. And it's different for everybody. You know, maybe you love Gray's papaya. I do too. And like coming to New York for hot dogs is great. No, I'm here all
Good.
day.
So,
Okay.
so this obviously is if you have a live audition, which I hope most schools are going to go back to this year. But who knows? You still
Mm-hmm.
might have to submit a recorded audition.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, make sure you pay particular attention to all the details and the guidelines. I'm sure every school is going to be different. Um, you know, again, Abby, I don't know if that's what you did. You probably did, didn't you? Did you
No,
do?
we had auditions live, right, for you?
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
You
It
came
was
in
like
person.
March 3rd, something
Yeah,
crazy.
you like
Ah,
just made it.
Yeah.
you just made it. Okay, okay. Yeah.
She
So
just got
again,
in.
it's hopefully we will be back to the live auditions. But if not, we do have a document that we again will send to Abby that just outlines some general guidelines to follow when you're putting together a video slash audio recording. I don't know if we need to go into it right now. We don't. We'll send that to you. It's just good to have that, even for just in general, for any kind of recording that you'll be doing
Totally.
next few years.
And I mean, I think it's safe to say, I don't know if you agree with me, Gina, but I think it's safe to say that, you know, COVID like turned our world upside down, obviously. And I think a lot of this virtual stuff is here to stay, in regards to as another option. So,
Yeah.
um, in regards to academia, I would not be surprised if there was a virtual audition option in addition to a live audition option. So I know this group is based out of the California area. So, like, I don't know, maybe if you're in California and you can't make it out to New York, maybe you're going to want to opt for a virtual audition. I'm not saying that's on the docket, but I would not be surprised if a lot of universities kind of trend in that direction.
Yeah.
Um,
We live in a hybrid world now, right? I mean, you're
yeah.
right. COVID changed the world, and now that we know we can have a virtual option, I think it is here to stay. We have a question.
Ooh, Connor, congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
Welcome to the
Connor,
fam.
what instrument do you play?
Yeah.
Because we want you to participate. There will
Yeah.
be opportunities to participate. We'll see if he answers. Bass
Bass
and
and
flute.
flute. Ooh, bass.
Oh, well,
Classical bass, right? Classical bass.
probably classical bass. Okay. Well, listen, we have, and Kaitlyn, maybe you should answer this because okay, great. Um, Connor, first of all, we have a great chamber music program. Anybody who would like to be involved in chamber music can pretty much be involved in chamber
Involved
music.
in chamber.
Um, Caitlin, maybe talk about the audition process for somebody like Connor.
Yeah, so actually we had a meeting this morning all about our audition process. Actually, a lot of our performance majors, I don't know if anybody's tuning in, will be happy to know that almost all of your excerpts are picked. So you'll have so much fun practicing all of them for orchestra auditions, which will be live in person at the end of August. Oh my God. Yeah, so basically what's going to happen, Connor, is we're going to have an open audition during your welcome week, if you will. It'll probably be that Monday. It's like August 30th, 31st, somewhere in that window. And you can just prepare a work for us and play it, and then we'll see where we can place you. You definitely can participate in our new Wind Symphony if that's something that interests you. And we're going to send a blast out to all of the music and performing arts professions students about our woodwind auditions. And you'll get all that information. But for you, since you're a music business major, you can come to our open auditions and, let us know what your interests are. We'll hear you play. We'll talk a little bit and then, see what we can do to place you in a group.
Yeah, but sure, I think I can say with 100% certainty that we will be able to place you into a chamber.
Oh, and you can also take lessons. If you have credit, duh, like if you want to take private lessons, you can do that for credit. So you could, as a music business major, you could either take a 2 or 3 credit lesson with one of our awesome flute teachers. I was going to say students, but your students. We're teachers. Or bass, yeah. Gina, isn't your colleague the bass teacher? He's awesome.
Yes. I don't know who else is on faculty at the moment, but Greg August is
Greg August,
one of the bass teachers. He's amazing.
The best.
And of course, we have a huge, amazing roster of flute
professors. Oh, yeah, the flute rosters.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So again, that's something you could do, Connor, is take a look and see if you know any of the teachers, if you have a preference for who you'd like to study with, because that's something that we will have to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And in general, and this is for anybody, let's say anybody here decides to go be a performing arts administration major, right? Okay. So they're not necessarily performing all the time, but they do want to keep their chops up, right? And play. It's usually advisable, and this is what I would suggest for Connor, take a semester of private lessons first, kind of get into a routine of playing weekly and meeting with the teacher and, making sure everything's up to snuff. Maybe playing in a large ensemble like the Wind Symphony, something like that, and then we can incorporate you into another ensemble in the spring. Or if we hear your audition and we feel like you're ready, we can put you right into a chamber ensemble. It really depends on how many credits you have available to enroll, and if you feel like you're going to have enough time to put in.
The jazz department. Question about the jazz department. How should I go about my auditions in that department? First of all, the jazz department is excellent. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Any department at NYU is amazing because, and this is why NYU is so great. Just gonna brag about us here for a second. We are located right in the middle of Greenwich Village. We pull, all of the great classical musicians, jazz musicians, new music, early music, whatever kind of music you can think of, they're all there. They live there, they perform there. So we really pull from some of the best artists in the city and in the world because they live right here. So again, Kaitlyn, not sure if you know exactly.
Yeah. So the jazz requirements are a little bit different than the classical requirements. I actually just asked Jax what his instrument is because a lot of it depends on that. It depends. That's a performance degree. I believe there, a lot of the audition requirements are still up there, so don't hold me to them exactly, but I do believe there's a pre-screen, so you'll have to send in a pre-recorded audition, and then I believe this year you'll come back and audition live with some sort of combo situation. That's usually, or what they've done in the past. Again, I don't know if they'll change that because of COVID or if they're going to keep everything virtual again, but that's usually how it works. So there'll be a pre-screen, you know, just for us to get an idea of instrumentation and all that kind of stuff. And then they have you come and play live. So depending on your instrument, the jazz faculty roster is like crazy.
Nuts.
Especially if Jax plays saxophone. I mean, I kind of like fangirl when we see Lenny Pickett on campus. Like, I kind of like have a moment where I'm like, oh my God, that's Lenny Pickett.
Saxophone on Saturday Night Live, by the way.
Yeah. For any of you that don't know.
At the end, who's always playing those.
Always playing on Saturday Night Live, yeah, at the end. Any other questions? Gosh, this hour kind of flew by.
Yeah, it did.
I want to ask one last question that I think would be helpful. It's not really about the admissions process, but kind of about like getting prepared for the music industry and being a performance major and knowing that's kind of a risky profession, especially with the industry always changing and modernizing, especially during the pandemic when all of the orchestras were virtual or not even running. So what advice do you have for performance majors that you think would be useful for them, you know, growing into the industry in the next few years?
Can I take this, Gina? Because I don't know if you know what I'm going to say. Abby, the best part about the performance degree, we kind of touched it on this a little bit. Oh, cool, Jax. Sorry, Abby, I'll get to you in a second. Jax, no difference. Like, pick repertoire that you sound great on, just kind of like what we talked about before. Make sure you sound great on whatever you're preparing. Make sure it highlights your strengths. Be prepared to talk about why you're playing it and all that kind of stuff. But no, there is no difference. And we do have a classical saxophone track if that's something you're interested in too. So you could do jazz or classical. And we have that whole Broadway thing going on. So I don't know if you double, but a lot of our saxophone students do participate in our Broadway orchestra, which is catered towards students that would want to play in a pit. So for example, if you play saxophone and you also want to play flute and clarinet, that's another option for you. And you can do that through the classical department or the jazz department. It's really up to you. Nice. Jax, we should connect. You should email us. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll make sure Abby sends all our stuff out. But Abby, that's a great question. First and foremost, a music performance degree, in my opinion, is one of the best degrees to have in this environment. And here is why. Especially at a place like NYU, you can really cater this to have your own area of expertise. So what's nice about a performance degree, especially at the undergraduate level, is you're learning all of your fundamentals, you're setting up your foundation, right? But let's say you have a passion in music business, right? Or arts administration or music tech. Your performance degree is still going to give you a very substantial foundation and level you up to be able to get a higher degree in one of those areas, or even catapult you into the industry. We've had so many students with performance degrees that have become attorneys, that have become medical doctors. They've gone on to medical school. But we've also had students with performance degrees work and manage Carnegie Hall. And I have to say, the way the business industry looks right now, having that performance degree is actually super valuable. There's a deficit of arts administrators that actually know how music works. And Gina and I could have a whole separate panel on that, but that is very true. There's a deficit in orchestras. There's a deficit in universities of arts administrators that actually have applicable music experience. So that's kind of why I'm privy to suggesting the performance degree to students, because it's kind of like the liberal arts of music degrees. You can teach with a performance degree. You can have a private studio. You know what I mean? You could open up other avenues within the music business, maybe arts admin. That's what I did. You know what I mean? I don't have an arts administration degree. I have a performance and education degree, right? So, you know, it's a good starting place because you get to open up all those facets. And a plug for NYU, let's say, Abby, you come to me and you're like, I'm really interested in taking Larry Miller's course on music business. We can email him, and that's something you can take as an elective, right? Or start to curate some credits underneath your belt in the music business degree. Or talk to your advisor about that or whatever. So, you know, there are different avenues and ways that you can kind of create your own special track within the performance degree.
Yeah. And I just want to say I agree with everything she said. And you're right, Abby. You know, COVID taught all of us, even those of us that have been working professionally in this career for many, many years, that nothing is for certain, right? I mean, one of the best orchestras in the world, the Met Opera Orchestra, you know, these guys and gals work so hard to get these jobs. It's probably one of the most difficult orchestras to get into. And because of that, they actually have very, very high salaries. I mean, these are some of the best musicians in the world. As you all probably know, they have not played a note together in a year and a half. And we still don't know if and when the Met is going to be opening, right? Some of these musicians have sold their instruments. They've moved out of the city. Nothing is guaranteed in this business, unfortunately. So I think you are absolutely right in making sure that, and listen, if you want to just be a music performance major and perform and do whatever it takes to perform, great.
Right.
But I do think that for a lot of people, and I know, Abby, you're thinking about this, a lot of other people are thinking about this, what else can I do in this field? I want to still perform, but let's say it doesn't work out. I mean, that is the reality. You can be the best darn flutist of your generation and still not find work. That is absolutely true. A lot of it is, well, there are a number of factors, but a lot of it is luck. A lot of it is just dumb luck. You know, you have to be prepared. You have to be ready to go, but a lot of it is just, you know, having that opportunity fall into your lap. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So anyway, my point is that I think what Kaitlyn said about having, having some other things, not to fall back on, but what are your other interests in music? You know, and start to tailor, even if you're not sure. Take a class in music business. Take a class in audio engineering.
Just dabble.
Right? We all know now that we need to be audio engineers, right? We didn't know this until last year, but now it's really, really good to have these skills. Take a music therapy class, take an arts admin class, and see if any of those pique your interest, and then start to tailor your electives and your degree program to that particular interest. Now, I do want to just say, this is the last thing, at NYU, we are very fortunate to have an amazing program. It's huge. It's kind of comprehensive. Any kind of music path you want to take, you can find it here. That's not the same for all schools. So again, do your research. If you know you want to take arts administration classes in your undergrad, make sure that school offers them, because it's not always the case everywhere.
The other thing, sorry, this is like a hot topic now, and like I also feel super passionate about this. If you know deep in your soul that you're going to get a graduate degree, right? You know, I want a master's, right? Which, like, the master's is the new bachelor's in this day and age, right? And like the doctorate is the new master's. It's true. Like now in our industry, most people have their master's degree. So let's say, you know, I love school. I want to keep going. I don't know what I'm going to get my master's in, but I know I want to keep going on this track of higher ed. Specialize then. Give yourself the 4 years to dabble in every facet of the music industry. And then if you know, oh my gosh, music technology is my passion, I loved it in my bachelor's degree, then go for your master's and then specialize then. You don't want to specialize too early. I've had many students, the opposite of Gina's sister, start at music therapy. By sophomore year, be like, what am I doing? I hate the guitar. I can't sing. This is terrible. And now they're out of the music industry, right? So, you know, a general degree at the beginning is usually the better. And that's why Do you need to take your performance degree seriously? 1,000%. Can you not practice hard? Of course not. But what I love about music performance is, especially at a school that's usually larger, you're introduced to all of these different facets of the music industry. So that's why I think it's a valuable degree at the UG level, for sure. This is a separate panel, Abby. You should have brought us back for another hour for this one.
Yes, I should have. We could be going for another hour talking about all that. But thank you so much for being here and all of your advice and helpful information. And to our attendees, we're happy to have you here. And we don't have any live attendees, but I think we'll be sending it to a bunch of students, if that's okay with you guys, the recording.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And everyone tuned in right now, if you want to come into our last talk today, it's at 5 p.m. Pacific with video game composer Grant Kirkhope. So that should be very fun too. You guys are free to come too. But yeah, thank you for being here with us. It was
absolutely. Well, Jax, thank you.
Thanks,
Contact
Jax.
us, okay?
Yeah, and Abby, if you want to send out our contact, you know what I mean? If students have questions, email questions or whatever, or, you know, they thought of something later, feel free to send out our emails and we'll be happy to, you know, talk to whoever has a question.
Perfect. Yeah, I definitely will.
Awesome. All right, guys.
Thanks.
This is fun.
Thank you, Abby. Thanks for bringing
Thank you, Abby, for having us. This is great.
Yeah, thank you for being here. All right.
All right, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.